In this video, Dr. Jordan Peterson explains how different motivation systems work in your body.
When you're taking a drug of some sort that you really like, that's because it's activating this dopaminergic incentive reward system. If you take a drug that activates consumatory reward, you just like lay in front of the fire like a sleeping dog. You know, it's not exciting. It's cocaine, amphetamines, alcohol for lots of people nail the incentive reward system, and that's the dopaminergic exploratory system that emerges out of the hypothalamus. And it's also the thing that learns what to associate with consumatory rewards. So I know that's a lot to take in, but, well, it doesn't matter. That's how it is. So the approach systems respond to cues of consumatory reward, and they also respond to a large set of biologically prepared stimuli, smells, for example. So now you should approach good things, but if a bad thing happens, what should you do? Well, one thing you should do is stop. Another thing you should do is get the hell out of there. So there's a constellation of negative emotions that are associated with defense and avoidance, and we kind of ran through those already. Pain, grief, frustration, disappointment, and then fear, which is sort of what you learn. You learn that things to be feared signal primary pain stimulus. You know, so a child's going to be afraid of a needle, especially if a child's got a needle before. Most children are smart enough to figure out they should be afraid of the needle even when they haven't had it. But the thing is that if you come into contact with something that's already caused you pain, and now there's something that only signals that that's likely to happen, that's when you experience fear. Okay, and fear is its own circuit, again, which is where the behaviors in some sense went a little bit wrong too. Because they thought of unconditioned punishment, which produces pain, as the primary motivational system. So it would be unconditioned punishment, unconditioned reward. Then there were things you learned about those that produced conditioned punishment and conditioned reward. Okay, but all of those have circuits, independent circuits. So the defense and avoidance negative emotions seem to be roughly pain, anxiety, and fear, but then there's disgust. And people have been looking at disgust a lot lately, and it doesn't load on neuroticism. It doesn't seem to load on neuroticism, so it's its own circuit. So, okay, so here's one other complexity that you need to grapple with, which is there are things that hurt, that cause you pain. There are things that are satiating and that are consumatory reward. Then there are things that signal each of those. But there's one class of stimuli, so to speak, or things that you're going to encounter that are paradoxical. And that's the class of things that you don't understand. That's novelty. And novelty, it's novelty itself that's sort of associated with what the phenomenologists are primarily concerned about. The idea of the revelation of meaning. Because the revelation of meaning is mostly associated with you encountering something that you haven't already understood, right? You explore that, new information comes out of it, a new you comes out of it. Okay, so you're going from point A to point B. What might happen? Well, things might happen that appear to demonstrate that you're on the right track. So that makes you happy. That's the yellow box, positive emotion. You know, your pathway is being facilitated, so that's why tools are sort of in that category. Or you can be moving towards point B and something gets in your way, and that might be something that hurts you. And that hurt would be pain or disappointment or frustration or grief, or something that signals that you might get hurt, which is threat, and that produces fear. And so the positive emotion is moving you towards the desired goal, and the negative emotion is protecting you. And so if a negative thing happens, you'll stop, and then you'll reconfigure the behavior that you're using or the framework in order to get around the obstacle and to continue. Or if it's a bad enough obstacle, you might say, well, I'm too tired to eat and I'm too hungry to sleep. That happens to people, right? It's a conflict of motivations. And so if you get up and you go into the cupboard and you find out there's nothing to eat, you might say, oh, to hell with it, then I'll just go to sleep. You know, so sometimes the way you solve a problem is by flipping the problem. It's like, we're not going to solve that problem right now, we'll turn to another problem. And that's an exploratory move. Sometimes you operate within the frame, you know. You go to the cupboard is bare, but you're hungry, so you walk down to the corner store and you get something to eat. And so that way you've sort of stayed within the frame, and altered, you've altered your behavior you've thought up another path and altered your behavior so that that motivated state can run to completion.